Game time.
Get your
Um, to
notebooks out.
yeah, start. Lining up, sitting down. So this week we're not gonna do like schemes necessarily, but we're gonna go over some more fundamentals. Um, I'm gonna personally be going over the defensive line gaps, as well as a little extra uh, stuff dealing with our defensive backs. And Ben, what are you going over?
I'm gonna just kind of break down a route tree. I think we're gonna try to put in just kind of a visual for you guys so you can help see. I know you've seen all of the stuff we're gonna be talking about today. It's truly the most fundamental, but I'm just gonna be going through the different type of routes that wide receivers or just anyone who's gonna receive the ball might be running in an offense.
Purely just basic stuff. If you're just an average fan like us, this stuff is new to you. If you like played football even a little, I mean, we're literally talking about middle school stuff probably. But for us, this stuff isn't obvious. So
We're not very smart sometimes, so
yeah. But I'll go ahead and begin. Like I said, we're talking about stuff like gaps and techs. You have your traditional offensive line set up. You have the center in the center, two guards, and then a tackle outside of those guards. And then you'll have a tight end if he's lining up on the line on either side there. Um, the gaps specifically, very important. You've heard it a lot. A gap, C gap, B gap, D gap, whatever. Those are referring to the spaces between the offensive lines. So A gap refers to the space on either side of the center, and then it'll start going out from there. If you're between the spaces between the guards and the tackles, it can be the B gap. Spaces between the tackles and the tight ends, that's the C gap. On the other side, that would be the D gap, which would just be the other side of the tight end. Or if for some reason you have another tight end set up there, it'd be between there. And you'd also increase the alphabet as long as there's more people.
Michael, I have a quick question. Doesn't this kind of tie into what you were talking about last week?
Oh yeah, it absolutely does. It also ties into what you were talking about last week with your 4-3. These gaps are referred to constantly. This is it's literally how you're setting up your defense. We'll go over it, but it'll tell you how you're setting up, how you're rushing the quarterback, if you're stopping the run, if you're trying to defend the pass, if you're just trying to stall for time, whatever. This stuff is very, very important. Thank you for the question. Also, so moving on to the text, this one's a bit more complicated than just simple gaps. Um, these texts, there are three things that you need to know. They're all going to be numbers, and one set of number and a letter. For outside shoulders, which is going to be the shoulder, I believe it's going to be like the shoulder outside comparative to the center. Um, so and those are going to be referred to with odd numbers. All right, if you're dead on the offensive lineman, it's called head up. Those are gonna be even. And then if you're on the inside shoulder relative to the center, those are gonna be it's gonna be the head up number. So it's gonna be even, and it's gonna have a lowercase I next to it, the letter I. So something that it's gonna look like this. If you have the center, you're gonna have 0 on the head on. So if you could imagine a C with a 0 right above it, that's going to be your 0 tech. On both sides of that 0, you're going to have a 1. Those are going to be your 1 techs. If you're lining up there even slightly over on either side of the center, your outside shoulder is just going to be 1, and your inside shoulder is just going to be 0. But you're not going to put like a 0 I, because it's like the middle. And you're going to keep going. You move a guy over like that. Now you're at 2 I, not 1 I. It'll always be the I from the number it's about to become. So you're going to go 2 I, which is now your inside shoulder. You're pretty much lined up right on the guard when you're referring to 2 and 3 I. Or just 3, sorry, there's no 3 I. So 2 I is inside. 2 is head on. You're looking straight at the guard. 3 is referring not to, there's not really like a inside shoulder when you're rushing a guard. I think usually those are left for bubbles or gaps. which are basically the same thing. It's just like a weakness where you don't have somebody. It's going to move on to head on from the tackle. So instead of 3-eye, you're going to get 4-eye for inside shoulder on the tackle. 4 is going to be head on. 5 is going to be inside, or sorry, it's going to be outside. You don't have a 4-eye either. It just goes to 5. That's basically the text. So when they're referring to like, a certain front, which I also kind of glanced over last week, and you're gonna go like a gap, you know, 2-eye tech, how you're coming into it.
Yeah, sometimes you hear the commentators are like, "Oh, they're running like an A gap front on this defense player."
Yes, basically. The other thing is kind of it applies to fronts, which are different ways that you set up your front seven. Like I said earlier or last week, over and under fronts are very popular. The defensive tackle or the nose tackle, which is going to be the guy that's around the center, he's going to be moved over to where the tight end is. So whatever side has a D gap, you're going to move him over there, and you're probably going to place him 1 tech, maybe 2-eye tech, 0 tech, that kind of thing. That's where he's going to be. You're either going to be head on with the center, you're going to be between center and guard. He's basically like an A gap rusher only. And that's going to be on over front. They're going to be on strong side, and then the same kind of tech lineups on under fronts, except they're going to be moved to the weak side where the tight end is not. Um, there's other fronts that like really this matters. The 2-eye front is very common. This where you have a nose tackle and a defensive tackle, and they're kind of moved both to the 2 eyes on either side. So you're basically just rushing inside shoulder on the guard, and then you're just going to be trying to split between the guard and the center, and you're going to be doing 2 guys there. So you're really attacking the inside. Very great for run defense. I don't think it's very good for like pass, just because the quarterback can easily run out because he'll see it coming. These kind of fronts and techs are often paired with covers. We went over cover. I went over cover 2, 4, and 3 last week. Specifically, what you'd find is like a cover 2, and then you'd have another word. Right? Those words it's usually 3. Obviously, these are fundamental, so I don't know all the specifics. The main ones are cloud. So you might have heard of cover 3 cloud. The other one is sky. You might have heard like cover 2 sky. Yeah, basically, I mean you see them all in all that. Yeah. Another one is called backer. So maybe like a cover 2 backer. What a sky refers to is a safety is coming down from the sky, not to blitz, but to set as
Like
a
the safeties are dropping to, it's like just part of the play.
yeah, exactly. So they're coming down, and their assignment is to cover the flat and what's called the force. The force is going to be the person who tries to push an outside run back inside. So they're basically forcing them back into the strength of the defense. And that assignment is basically where all of these different additives matter. So, like I said, for Sky, the force is going to be the safety. They're also going to cover those flat routes. The cornerbacks are going to run deep. The linebackers are going to stay in the box, try to get the hook and the curl. For Cloud, it's basically the exact same, except you're not having the cornerbacks deep. You're just having the cornerbacks are going to come down for the force and the flat, and then the safety is going to stay up. Those are like what you'd imagine to be safeties. So if you ever see like cover 2, it's probably going to be cover 2 Cloud because the safeties are not coming down. The last one is backer, where the linebacker is going to get the force. So that's going to make the cornerbacks kind of push out deep. You might see like cover 4 backer, stuff like that. And those strong safeties are going to come in for the hooks and curls. And that's pretty much like the base. Whenever people are telling you how to line up, they're going to give you probably a gap or a tech, or they're going to tell you if it's a sky, cloud, whatever. There's a couple other ones that I guess are more technical from what I was reading, but those are based off of like small, minute details that maybe we can get into later. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the front.
There is going to be a test on this next week, just so everyone knows. So you have to make sure you know this stuff.
Yeah, write down your notes, learn how to study.
Yeah, that thank you for that, Michael. That's a very informative, and I feel like we're trying to really build a foundation of just somewhere to start when we get into this, and hopefully by the end of the season we're going through more complicated with us, and you know. But for me, just for the route tree, um, I'm just going to be going through kind of the 9 standard routes that receivers are running. The first is the flat route, and that's, this is a very basic, so it's very quick. It's when you see, usually a slot receiver lining up, play is snapped, they run up very quickly, and then it quickly break out towards the sideline. And this is usually slot receiver at the tight end, and this gives the quarterback, a quick, check down throw of like, okay, I'm not seeing anything downfield. I got a guy right near me, and maybe he can get around the edge of the defense and pick up a good few yards. The second is pretty similar to the flat, and you'll see that a lot of these plays kind of come in twos. This one is the slant. It is the same thing, tight end, slot receiver. Instead of going out towards the sideline, they go straight towards the middle of the field. This allows the quarterback to kind of, if the sides are covered, that they can just throw in the middle. And a lot of the time with the slant play, the receiver is going to get immediately tackled by the linebacker that's right there. We know throwing through the middle of the field is risky, so slants are usually pretty chunky plays. You're not going to get a lot on a slant. One that comes to mind, and this obviously shows my Lions bias, but Amon-Ra St. Brown is probably one of the best slot receivers. And for those who don't know what a slot receiver is, that's the one when you have 3 receivers on the field. You have one on the right, one on the left, and then you have another one on the left between the one that's far out and the offensive. That's the slot. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is very good at, the middle of the field catches. He's always good at getting open. And, any of these plays can become very, you can blow up a defense with it. But these are just, the very safe, like, we're trying to play conservative. We want to just get a rhythm going. We're going to throw slants. We're going to slow some, check down flats, just to kind of see what we can get. And maybe we can get 3 or 4 yards on these, and it's 3rd and 2 by the end of those 2 plays. Now we're going to get into some more, medium routes. Again, pair of 2. First is the comeback route. So this is when the receiver tries to go straight in, usually about 8 to 10 yards, and then kind of turn on a dime and start angling back in at like a 45-degree angle towards the sideline. This allows the quarterback to throw a back shoulder catch to the receiver, and it allows the receiver to also create a lot of separation. And this is a very hard pass to defend. But this also requires a lot of accuracy from the quarterback. So it is risky in a lot of situations. I think on a lot of passes like this, it's easy for receivers to get picked off because they can't see the cornerback behind them. And if the cornerback can see that the ball's coming my way, they can make a play on the ball. So if it's done by good players, a good receiver, a good quarterback, very hard to defend against. But if you're playing against better defense or you don't have the communication you need, it could result in backbreaking for your offense. The next is the curl. It's kind of the same thing, except you go up, angle 45 degrees going towards the middle of the field. This kind of jukes the defender into thinking it's a vertical route. And this is the same thing with trying to do the back shoulder catch. It is hard to sell. It's kind of have to throw the ball as the quarterback while they're moving. So it's not like some of these where on a flat route, the running back runs out, just kind of stands there, and the quarterback sees him, throws the quick check down. Maybe they get a yard or 2. For this to work, like I was saying on the comeback route, you gotta have the communication. You gotta know the ball is coming for you. You might mess it up and change the momentum of the game. So next we're getting into it's still medium passes, but they're starting to get a bit longer. This could be about 10 to 15 yards. So an explosive play, but not something that you're out on your own 30-yard line, not something that necessarily gets you a 70-yard touchdown. But this is when the receiver runs 10 to 15 yards out and then cuts at a 90-degree angle across the field. Pretty simple, kind of just like a larger flat route. It goes towards the sideline. And then there's the in/dig route. That's where you go in 10 15 yards, 90-degree angle towards the field. Kind of similar to the curl and the comeback route, except for this, you're not trying to turn on a dime. This kind of has you running in a motion just parallel to the line of scrimmage. And so this gives the quarterback time to kind of read the play, throw the ball to you, and even though you're still moving, you can see it's coming. You don't have to have quite as much communication, but you do need to have a very accurate quarterback to pull these off. And then finally, for the last pair, we still have one more after this pair, our corner and post routes. These are the deeper routes. Corner route, where the receiver goes out 15 yards, 45-degree angle, still going up towards the end zone you want to get the ball into, running out towards the sideline. This is a very good route for creating space and pulls the safety out of the middle of the field. Maybe open up another post route, which is the same thing, that the opposite, going towards the middle of the field on the other part, on the other side. So it can kind of be used to either get safeties moved, or if you have a very fast receiver, it can be used to get an explosive play, get a 50-yard touchdown for that. And then last but not least is the fade/go route. This is just a very simple. The receiver runs vertically as far as and as fast as they can. If the quarterback has the arm, they can just throw a bomb to you. You're open. It's a touchdown. Yeah.
Coach, I have a question. All right. Do you think that most receivers have like the ability to do each one of these routes, or do you think it's like, you can only really master like 2 or 3?
I think it's certainly possible to master all of them, but I think that kind of is only for the receivers who are the all-purpose ones, Ja'Marr Chase, Justin Jefferson. Yeah. And even for someone like Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's certainly capable of all of these, but that's why the Lions have a Jameson Williams. He's very good at those big plays. He's very fast. Amon-Ra St. Brown is better at those, small to medium plays, and he can still get a large play out of that. But I think it really just depends on the receiver, and a good team will have, their core of 2 or 3 receivers that are experts at all 9 of them between the 2 to 3 of those.